Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Coaching from the Couch. This is your weekly DMV Sports Update. And I am your host, CWall, checking in as I do each and every single week, for the most part, to give you all the latest and greatest information and hot topics surrounding teams in the Washington metropolitan area, also known as the DMV. So, if you are checking in, we got to go through some housekeeping items. If you are a returning watcher, hello, 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 welcome back. And if you are new to the family, welcome. We're so happy to have you. We go through a couple of housekeeping items at the top of the show. This is a live Bowie television recording. Everything we say and do here will show up on your television screens. Verizon Channel 11, Comcast Xfinity Channel 77, each and every single day from 1:30 to 2:30, and then on the weekends during the noon hour. If you're also just checking in, you know that I always say one of the housekeeping items is simply this. You got to say hello to Mama Waller. Drop it in the chat. You got to say hello to Pops Waller. Make sure you drop that in the chat as well. If you're watching from the Facebook live stream, make sure you hit that love button and share this show with your DMV. Well, it's weekly, but DMV sports loving family and friends. If you are tuning in from the YouTube stream, hit the thumbs up, the bell. You can still drop the link to whomever you would like to take part in the live discussion. So, of course, you could always, if you're catching the replay, hello, 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 and thanks for catching up and checking in on the show as well. So earlier I did put on my post that this was going to be a kind of something that I haven't done in a very long time, and that is choose your own adventure. And choosing your own adventure is really around, what do you want to talk about? What are some of the topics in DMV sports that you say, you know what? This is a topic that I think everybody should want to hear more about. And let's talk about it. Now, we see Mama Waller has checked in. It's so much talk around rebuilds. And I sometimes say, and you've heard me say, okay, the only way you're going to fix a sports team or fix an issue is that you just may have to rebuild the whole entire thing. You might have to start from scratch. And when you're talking about a new ownership group, of course, we're talking about the Commanders or any type of changes in leadership. We know that that's what's happening with the Wizards. We know that with the Nationals, they are, we're in talks of selling the Nats. We know kind of course, because that hasn't actually happened yet. There was at one point almost like a fire sale. Everyone was getting traded, and that stung. But one of the things that I've been talking about and thinking about and really sharing with DMV sports fans is, can this area really take a true rebuild? Can they really take one? Because I didn't mention the Capitals in that one, but we know this last season, it was the first time the Caps didn't make the playoffs in ages. And we know that Alexander Ovechkin, in all of his greatness, isn't getting any younger. So at some point that will happen as well, where we may see just trickling around all of the teams. Even if we go to the collegiate space, if you are a Georgetown Hoyas fan, check in, love button, fire emoji. You know how hard it is and how hard it has been to kind of see the decline in that basketball program and not really knowing and understanding how is it going to change? What does it really take to change? And it's for certain just one of those, it's just you don't know. Let's just be honest. You never really know what the right answer is. And when you have new leadership coming in, it especially is difficult because sometimes, like we've heard, and this is the DMV sports show. So I'm talking all across the sports in DMV and just the topic of rebuilds because it's something that is either going on currently or it's going to more than likely happen soon. And I see that the CWall chaplain, Mazdak, has jumped on as well. And if you are just tuning in, this is the Coaching from the Couch series, the weekly DMV sports update. I'm your host, CWall. This is a live Bowie television recording. Hit the love button, share this show, because tonight we're talking sports team rebuilds. Does it work? How does it work? I'm more so wanting to get into the can you even really deal with a sports rebuild? Right? So we catch it, like circling back to the topic of can you even really deal with a sports rebuild? Everyone is hey, the commander sees I'm going across everybody. And then I'm going to the command. We all know the commander season has not turned out like anybody thought it would. There's some new owners in town. They have an opportunity to try to correct things. We also know that the new owner, the majority owner, Josh Harris, I've shared this with you all many of times, and they sometimes joke and call him the process and entrusting the process. And that if you look at his other sports teams, the Philadelphia 76ers, the New Jersey Devils, it's certainly a process, and at times still is. If we look at the Philadelphia 76ers, we already know that just this past NBA season, Josh Harris had to part ways with his head coach because that team didn't go as far as he expected them to in the time that he expected them to get there. So I'm looking at and based on what Josh Harris has already been preaching and teaching and saying about patience, and sometimes to go forward, you have to take a step back. I've asked Commanders fans, are you able to go through a true rebuild when it's from top to bottom? The Josh Harris ownership group brings in all of their own people. Sometimes you can't start completely from scratch. You got to have a few pieces. But if there's some pieces of collateral or assets and players that you have that you say, okay, well, we want to trade a few players to get another impact player, or we want to trade a few players and get draft picks. What does that process, what does that time look like? But once you hear the leader say, oh, we got to teach we got to talk, and I want to assure you about patience. And again, understanding how he's done things in the past with his other sports teams, it's like, okay, this might take some time, but how much time and how much of a grace period does the Commanders fan base have? Right? We can say the same thing with the Nats fan base. Okay, everybody got traded away. How much time do you really have? And do you even really want to sit through to watch it? And you may still sit through it nonetheless. But how much time is too much time to go through a rebuild? I have been chatting with Wizards fans, and I've been seeing the reaction of Wizards fans just across the area. And the fan base seems to be so disgruntled about where the Wizards are currently and have been disgruntled since the top of the season. And I always say the leaders have spoken. I'm going to go back even to like a Josh Harris. What does the leaders have been saying? They're talking patience. They're saying rebuilds are hard. You'll have to trust that process. You have to trust what's happening. You have to trust what's going on. And you'll have to, and everyone will have to be on board to get through it. Yet, leaders being very open, honest, and transparent, fans don't care. They're like, it's almost unheard of having to rebuild, but the leaders actually told you the truth about a rebuild, and you still said, don't care, doesn't matter. The roster is right there in your face, so you see what you are getting in terms of a team this year. Yet, you know, when the ball drops, when the puck drops, whatever, however you say it, for anything across these sports, fans are still not going to be happy. And I see Mazdak's comment here in the chat where he says, I need to see immediate improvement. And I'm going to go through some of the other responses and it was specific to Commanders fans, but just the general sense of, can you do a true rebuild or not? Matter of fact, let's jump there now to see what some of the comments were that came back. Let's read through them together. Calvin Billy Boots says, these days, rebuilds don't take several years like in the past. Just look at how quickly San Fran and even the Eagles have become powerhouse teams, and we've witnessing the Lions do the same, not in just 2.5 seasons. I think we can give the team a good 2 to 3 seasons to rebuild. And at that time, we should at least be competitive in contention to win the division and get into the playoffs and contend for the Super Bowl. Mazdak again. Mazdak says ASAP. Mazdak said ASAP. BJ Lucas says true rebuild. Frank Smith Jr. says ASAP because I'm not getting any younger. Bundle King Bennett told me true rebuild with all new front office, coaches, and new players in a lot of positions. James Weldon says, I'm down for the ride. Been riding this long. Besides, when they finally get it right, it'll feel good, not hopping on and off the bandwagon. 2 years of good acquisitions can get you to the top. And another comment here from Samuel Jackson. For me, I think a 3 to 5 year plan is grace for new ownership. I'd say that's fair if the focus is data driven and we see progress within that frame. But I ain't buying, he already done told you, he's not buying anything. Buying something else is out for him, okay? He's not buying anything else for at least 2 years. Okay. So as Mazdak has here in the chat, if we're not moving forward, where are we going? So, hey, and Mazdak is going off in the chat. He said, I've been here long enough. I'm ready. And if you're just tuning in, you're watching from the Coaching from the Couch series. This is your weekly DMV Sports Update. I'm your host, CWall. This is a live Bowie television recording. And tonight, because this show covers all of the DMV sports, we're talking sports team rebuilds, right? We know that the Wizards are going through a rebuild right now. We know that the Nats are rebuilding. They're doing something. Over there. But we know it's been a couple of years since they've made some changes, right? And we know that there's talk about a Commanders rebuild. And what does that look like? What is too long? What does it mean for you? Share more in the chat whether or not a rebuild is what you really want to see. Here's what I think. This is just my opinion. And if you're just tuning in, love button, share the show with your DMV sports loving family and friends. Drop in the chat your comments on whether or not you think you can sit through a Washington Commanders rebuild. Here's the thing. And I know that there's already talk. I see Mazdak is a season ticket holder. So we know that current team president Jason Wright has already sent out the message to season ticket holders that yesterday's price is not today's price. And it's going up 8% or so, I believe, 8% or so increase on season tickets. And for the product on the field, you're not real sure what you're paying for, right? And now the money is going up. They want money. I see Mazdak, he's educating as a season ticket holder. They used to want all the money in April. Now they want more in January. So it becomes a when your money is being invested in it, you want to see a return quickly. You need to see something. You can't see this again, is what you cannot see. And that's what I want to hear from you all. Is it, and Mazdak has already spoken. So drop your thoughts in the chat on if you can really go through another rebuild. I'm going to use my clues from what I've seen from other area sports teams. Point blank period, I don't think, while I may believe and think that what Josh Harris has shared so far in terms of patience and all of those things is, hey, it's hard to win professional football games. It for certain is. But I do think the reality is, in this area and with this fan base, I don't think the fan base is going to even be able to deal with another rebuild in this town that's going to take years upon years. I do think there needs to be some immediate change. I do. I think I just think so. And I see this comment here from Bernard. I can go through a rebuild from the couch, but paying for season tickets is going to be tough. Like, and that's just the thing. I think there needs to be an immediate change. There needs to be a way. And I'm going to go back to the comment that I posted about what Sam Jackson said about, hey, but I'm not buying anything for 2 years. And there has to be change. There has to be an immediate change. There has to be an immediate change. I'm not. I understand true rebuilds, but I don't think this fan base is going to be able to take a true rebuild. Now, I'm not saying that they have to make decisions based on the fan base solely, but because there are teams that have actually made changes, at least within a couple of years. I don't think the 3+ years thing is going to work. I mean, it can work, but I don't think it's going to be too tough. It's hard. It is hard. And in that regard, with a rebuild, then you have to understand which players are you going to keep? Who even wants to stay for a rebuild? Who even wants to go through that? Because if they haven't been rebuilding since the Dame has been here, then what have they actually been doing? And we've listed off teams previously, right? And I see there's one in the chat as well from Mike Patton that says the Texans, because yes, they made a change within a year, right? And they've made a change that you've already seen some improvement. We don't know where they're headed, but one key thing about it, they have a head coach that understands principles in the now and he comes from an excellent coaching tree, as well as they found the quarterback. So for Commanders fans, or not even Commanders fans, the Commanders ownership group, they're going to have to ask themselves, is Sam Howell the guy? Is he the guy? Is this how we're rolling? Because improvements start with your offense. This is just a league, and you all have heard me say it time and time again, where this league is just, it's high-powered offenses. You have to be able to score. Now, there's certain times where defenses prove to you and they show you all the time that defense still matters, and being able to stop your the opposing team from scoring absolutely still matters, and it does. But everybody that's going somewhere, everyone knows who the quarterback is. So I'll drop that question to you all now, and you all let me know if you think, is Sam Howell the guy? Has the ownership group said, okay, we can do something with this guy. We got to get him some help, the offensive line, because in front of the quarterbacks that are the guy for their team, they got a pretty vicious offensive line. They have a pretty vicious offensive line. True rebuild, who's going to stay through that? Immediate impact, you still have to make some very smart decisions. And in order, again, to have that immediate impact, you got to be sure about your quarterback. Sure. And you have to draft and make excellent moves in free agency to build your team immediately. I'm going to give you an example. Earlier, I believe it was Calvin Billy Boots' comment that made the comment about the Eagles. 2 years ago, or was it last year, where I had a lot of Commanders fans get mad at me because I said, oh, the Eagles are running, they're going one place, and that's to the Super Bowl. They've made it very clear. Where did they make it very clear? They made it very clear in free agency, and they made it very clear in how they were drafting. That is exactly what the Eagles did. Then I said they're for sure winning the division. Absolutely going to win the division. And they are on their way. They have made it clear by the moves they have made. They're making a move now. Right? They could come out like that. But they had Jalen Hurts already. They knew who the quarterback was going to be. When they made that trade for A.J. Brown, when they did, they made some moves 2 offseasons ago. Not this past one, the other one. Then this year, you saw it again. They do make the Super Bowl and lose, and then what do you see them do? Get better. Oh, but you got to have. I'm real big now, and some of you all have heard me say this when you engage me in conversation. I said, you know what? I'm big on players. I'm big on coaches, super big on coaches. But you want to know where my interest has lied here in the last few years of going to the combine, really understanding and seeing truly how the process works from the inside out and how decisions are made. I've really gotten myself into, I want to know who your scouts are. I want to know who your talent evaluators are, because that's who is going out here and finding your Micah Parsons. They're finding your Jalen Hurts. They're finding your A.J. Browns. They're finding, who has the next Trent Williams? Who can spot him out? I'm being serious, right? Because that's somebody you need to go and get, and you don't have, and it's no time to wait for them to develop. I think one of the spaces and places where this current coaching regime for the Commanders may have taken a more old school approach to this is we're going to get good character guys, good ball players, and we're going to turn them into who they wanted them to be on the field versus who they are.